For some reason, racist people genuinely think they can confide in me. The amount of people who say things to me.
In many predominantly white schools across the US, Black and mixed students are faced with unique challenges that often go unnoticed. These struggles can range from microaggressions to lack of cultural representation, and all this can take a toll on their mental health, sometimes leading to years of therapy. This is Comfort for Life, and I bring to you a compilation of TikTok videos for educational purposes. If you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel, and to my returning viewers, I love and appreciate you. Your contribution to this channel is highly appreciated. I love your interaction and I love interacting. Click that like button for recommendation. Just imagine sending your child to school in the hope to secure a better future for them, and then having them go through therapy for years because of the damages that the system of the school has caused to them. We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this issue? And in this video, I will be sharing a few clips of students who are sharing their experiences having gone through such schools, and they have a message to their parents. What do you think? How can school do better to support these students? Share your views and thoughts in the comment section, and let's have a conversation around this. Enjoy the rest of the video.
Someone needs to do an academic study on the outcomes and the experiences of young Black girls who go to predominantly white prep schools. I firmly believe if you are sending your young Black daughter to a really nice elite prep school, be prepared not only to pay that tuition now, but to also pay for very expensive therapy in a decade from now. I went to one of those like $50,000, $60,000 a year prep schools from 6th grade up until 12th grade. I played lacrosse, field hockey, crew on the Charles River. It was also a New England prep school. I think there's also a regional nuance here. It was psychological warfare. Spending your most formative years not being the standard of beauty, being ostracized, oftentimes being the only one in your class, having to learn about slavery in a very unsafe environment. It is, I don't think parents understand the psychological cost and warfare on young Black girls to go to these elite prep schools. Forget about having a boyfriend. Forget about going to prom. Forget about learning about race and consciousness in a healthy and safe way. Forget about if you're smart, if you're talented, if you're pretty, even if your parents have money. It is torture. You cannot fully know yourself and also be self-aware and develop a healthy sense of self in a space like that. I refuse. You can argue with me if you want. You can't do it. And I'm saying this for young Black girls specifically because I think young Black boys, though the trauma might also still exist, I think they have very different experiences than young Black girls who go to prep school.
Stop sending your kids to the all-white schools for access to better education. As someone whose parents did the same, we've talked about it, they regret it. Let me tell you why. It causes irreparable damage to your self-esteem and your mental health that takes so much time and effort to self-correct that it's not worth it. But sending them to an all-white school with people who do not look like them is not the answer, I promise you. This is how you have people getting on the internet talking about like divesting from the Black community, or like people who are like, it's just a preference, it's just a preference. Like, no. Also how you have people my age, 28, who cannot date people the same skin complexion as them because it makes them uncomfortable. It's not their preference, when in reality it's just this thing that's like in their head that they can't shake, but they don't have the language to explain it. And it's very, I'm sure it's embarrassing for them, but it's also very embarrassing being on the receiving end of that. All of those people, the common denominator is they did not grow up with people who looked like them and developed a fucked sense of reality that honestly they probably will never unsee. And I just don't think the access to better education is worth it. And I feel like people are so quick to judge these suburban Black kids who have these types of problems and are just like, well, you can just like think differently. And I don't think you understand, like, when you have been fighting for your life in defense of your race since you were 10 years old, it is not like a switch that you can just like get back into and think like properly. It takes effort, and it's really fucked up, all in pursuit of a better education that honestly we all should have access to anyways, but we have a system that gives priority to wherever taxes go or whatever bullshit. I don't feel like explaining it. Send your kids to school with people who look like them and pay for the extra tutors, put them in Kumon or something. Or yeah, maybe send them to the white school and put them in environments with people who look like them so they don't forget who they are, because the aftermath is scary. The aftermath is how you have people like freaking Candace Owens. And as someone who had to spend a majority of their early 20s unlearning all of that, I could have been doing anything else, but instead I had to unlearn racial trauma that I shouldn't have been exposed to in the first place. So, general PSA, just don't do it. Or if you're going to, like, have guardrails, but it's 110% not worth it.
The hardest thing about raising a Black child that goes to a predominantly white institution is that you want to find this balance of teaching your children to love and accept and have great relationships with people that are different culturally from them. But you also want to protect them from the children of white people who have not taught their children how to fully appreciate Black children. So what I mean by this is little white kids that don't value little Black kids, and so they can't be good friends to them. And I want to protect my kids from that. And I also don't want my kids to grow up and hate or distrust any group of people just based on their race. How do we do this? It's so hard.
Like, whenever white people would do things that make me uncomfortable, like make fun of my ethnic food or just give like nasty glances to me and my family when we went out in public, I'd always get immediately sort of shut down when I brought them up because there was no proof that these were instances of racism. I now recognize these as microaggressions, but this kind of racist gaslighting really messes with your head as a kid. It makes you question your own reality. Growing up, I really thought there was something wrong with me because I just walked around feeling really angry and hurt by white people all the time, and I couldn't justify why. Kathy Park Hong describes these feelings of anger as minor feelings in her book of the same name, which you should totally read. Minor feelings occur when American optimism is forced upon people of color, which contradicts our racialized reality. And when we decide to speak up about these minor feelings or lived racism, we get told by white people that we're overreacting.
I was too Black for the white kids and too white for the Black kids.
Do y'all see me?
So I started studying and noticing the differences between being one of the few Black girls in a predominantly white school. There were these nuanced differences that made you feel so far disconnected. Most of my adolescence was me adopting my appearance and even being willing to bend my beliefs in order to fit in. Turns out corporate America was no different.
Because it's the truth.
As time went on, I got better and better at code switching to the point where it was hard to decipher what was me and what was the persona that I was putting on to fit in corporate America.
I fake and act like other people.
That might work at school, or that might work when you're trying to get a promotion, but that certainly does not work when you're building your own business. Reason being, you start to lose your sense of self. No matter how afraid you might be of not fitting in, remember to stay true to yourself and not compromise your beliefs or your values. Remember that it's safe for you to be seen fully as you are. You are more than enough.
I went to one of those really bougie prep schools where it was like $60,000 a year. Everyone played lacrosse, field hockey, and yes, it was traumatic, but also there were so many things that I learned that I want to share. Number one, by far and away, is not being deferential to authority. If those kids got a grade on a test that they did not agree with, they had no issue going to the teacher and confronting them. They had no issue asking for help. Which goes into my next point, is learning how to engage with authority figures like your peer or like teachers. Like, they're there to support you and they were not afraid to ask for help. Those kids would be at lunches and dinners, at the teachers' homes, hanging out with teachers, going on academic field trips with teachers. The thought of that at 13 years old frightened me to be with an adult, but they were completely comfortable learning how to engage, even as a young child, with authority and senior level figures. At these schools, I will also say you are taught how to think and be a critical thinker versus regurgitating information. I think some schools are really centered on, like, you have to pass a test to get to the 8th grade or to the 9th grade. These schools were not like that. These schools where we are going to teach you in the most academically rigorous way how to be an independent thinker. I will also say the life experiences that you have going to one of these prep schools, like playing field hockey, playing lacrosse. We would have to do exchange programs where I lived with a family in Spain when I was like 15 years old and became essentially fluent in Spanish during that time, because the sort of extracurricular hobbies that you're exposed to. I used to do crew or rowing on the Charles River at like 13 years old. Those sorts of experiences were really helpful, particularly as you're looking to elevate and navigate your social circle. And the last thing, everything, when you have money, everything is negotiable. Everything is up for conversation if you got the cash.
One thing that I've noticed about being mixed, I'm half black, half white, but I think people who have any part black would probably be able to relate to this. And I know talking about being mixed on this app is not for the weak, but here I go. Also prefacing that I grew up in a predominantly white suburb. I go to a PWI, so I've been surrounded by a lot of white people throughout my life. But for some reason, racist people genuinely think they can confide in me. The amount of people who say things to me or who act a certain way or who are friends with me but not friends with any other black people or don't say anything to any other black people because they think that because I'm half black or I don't really look black, it's okay to say, it's okay to hang out with me, like I don't really count as black. Someone has actually told me that, well, she's not even that black to get mad about that. And it's always the people who are subtly racist and you don't know, and then finally their true colors come out. And I'm like, how have I been friends with you this whole time? And it's because they just don't think of you as black. So they don't have an issue with it. And then until they say something and get confronted about it, and then it's kind of like a, oh, well, and it's always just them apologizing or them being sorry that I had my feelings hurt and the intention wasn't for me to be upset or the intention wasn't for me to be hurt. But I'm like, you should be apologizing for being racist, not hurting my feelings. The issue is you being racist, not how I feel about what you said. I don't know if any other mixed people can relate to this, but I just feel like the racist people think they can confide in me and it's disgusting. But honestly, I can catch them all. So if you wanted to put your friend up to the test or you wanted to see if someone was racist, send them my way because eventually it's going to come out and they think they can confide in me.
To the gym this morning and a girl came up to me and she's like, hey, weird question, but did you go to such and such grammar school? And I was like, yeah, in year 9. I went there for a year before I left. And she's like, oh my gosh, I remember you, blah, blah, blah. So for those of you who don't know, in year 9, I got a scholarship to a grammar school. It was an academic scholarship. And it was called the Social Inclusion Scholarship. And so this other girl was an African girl and she had a friend who was an Indian girl. And this school that we went to was a predominantly white school, which is fine, but it was predominantly white. And then obviously this is a different socioeconomic class school that we went to. It was very rich, very upscale. I think at the time the fees were $24,000 a year or $23,000 a year. It's probably gone up by now, but we were all on this scholarship and we used to catch a school bus. That's how I know her. And I was like, oh yeah, I only lasted 1 year. Did you end up graduating there? She was in the year level above me. She's like, yeah, me and the other girl, we stayed. And I was like, how was that? She's like, oh, it was rough. And I was like, yeah, me too. Like, it was the roughest year. It was the worst year of my life. And I was like, it's so strange because I'm like, the girls weren't mean. It's not like I was bullied or anything, but I never felt so depressed and so lonely in my life than when I was going to that school. And she's like, yeah. She's like, I mean, surprisingly, I ended up making friends for life there. But she's like, they used to call us the multicultural group. She's like, so there was me, she's African, Indian, one Russian girl, one Egyptian girl. And I'm like, that's so crazy. They were called the multicultural group. But it's such a unique experience. And I haven't actually been able to explain it or articulate it to like my friends and people as to why I disliked being at that school so much. So it was so good to bump into her and for her to understand what I was talking about. Like, the school was amazing. It had the resources. It had everything, right? The people were not mean, but I can't explain how miserable I was there. And like, even the scholarship being called the Social Inclusion Scholarship, it should have told me then, but by God's grace, I begged my mom. I knew after one term, I'm like, I can't be here. But I begged and begged my mom that I could go back to my old school, which was a girls' school, Catholic girls' school, but it was multicultural. I felt at home there. I felt just comfortable and I went back. But I don't know. Does any other people of color in Australia that went to like a grammar school or like a very rich posh school have that experience of, oh my gosh, get me out of here? Like, I feel like I do not belong. Like, this is the worst of the worst experience. Or was it unique to me? I'm not sure.
I'm glad you watched this extent. Kindly like the video if you haven't yet liked the video. Let us explore ways in which the schools can improve the experiences of Black people, of course, with the minority groups that are in predominantly white schools. The first thing has to do with the curriculum. It should be inclusive. That means that schools should include literature, history, and social studies material that highlights the achievements of Black people and also individual of minority groups in history. Schools should also provide a safe place for students, which is so crucial. And these strategies could be having anti-bullying policies. This should be implementing strict anti-bullying policies that especially address racism and discrimination, can help create that safer place for students of minority. Safe places also establish groups where Black and minority groups can express themselves freely, share their experience, and receive support from peers who understand their challenges. Another point has to do with a relationship with families of minority groups of students with the school. That can also play a big part in improving their experiences. Collaborating with local organizations that serve minority groups, community can provide additional resources to support system and opportunities for engaging outside classrooms. I'm simply giving few of them. There are a lot of things that can be done. This is part of the school, and also everything starts with the family. I feel like parents also have to educate their children on the diversities we have. I know they are predominantly white school. These are people who see themselves as the world. And when somebody comes from outside, they see them as a threat. They see them as, where you're from, this world belongs to us. And parents have a huge part to play in educating their children on the diversity there is in the world, because everything starts with the parent. As we've heard in other clips there, where students were told, that they have nothing to do with Black people. So from home, parents are telling them, don't associate yourself with those people. So parents have a big role to play in improving the experiences of these people in school. That was it about this video. Kindly leave your thoughts in the comment section and don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel. It's free of charge. And goodbye for now. Very true.